introduce myself, my name is Winda Dwi Aryani from Group 5. I will explain about tools of research. Tests are valuable measuring instrument for educational research. A test is a set of stimuli presented to an individual in order to elicit response on the basis of which a numerical score can be assigned. This score based on a representative sample of the individual behavior is an indicator of the extent to which the subject has the characteristic being measured. Some tests, such as multiple choice and true-false tests, are described as objective because the scoring is done by comparing student answer with the scoring key, and scorers need make no decisions. Standardized tests. The skill measured are not necessarily what ought to be taught at any grade level, but the use of norms does give educators a basis for comparing their group with an estimate of the mean for all children at that grade level. Currently, as part of the accountability movement, standardized tests are being widely used to measure student achievement. No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 mandated that states have instruments that ensure accurate measurement of a body of skill and knowledge judged to be important, and that the instrument be administered and scored under standardized conditions. The measurement aims to determine the number of students of a particular grade level who know a particular set of facts or are proficient in a particular set of skills. If one is interested in measuring achievement in more than one subject area, it is less expensive and time-consuming to use a battery. The main advantage of the test battery is that each subtest is normed on the same sample, which makes comparisons across subtests, both within and between individuals, easier and more accurate. In selecting a achievement test, researchers must be careful to choose one that is reliable and is appropriate for measuring the aspect of achievement in which they are interested. Sometimes a researcher is not able to select the test but must use what the school system has already selected. The mental measurement yearbooks present a comprehensive listing along with a review of the different achievement tests available. Researchers made tests. Although they are excellent standardized tests in mathematics, they are generally designed to measure broad objectives and may not focus sufficiently on the particular skill the researchers wishes to measure. It would be wise in this case to construct the measuring instrument paying particular attention to evidence of its validity and reliability. The researchers should administer a draft of the test to a small group who will not participate in the study but who are similar to those who will participate. An analysis of the result enables the researchers to check the test validity and reliability and to detect any ambiguities or other problem before employing the test. Norm, reference, and criterion reference tests. In contrast, criterion reference tests enable researchers to describe what a specific individual can do, without reference to the performance of others. Performance is reported in terms of the level of mastery of some well-defined content or skill domain. Typically, the level of mastery is indicated by the percentage of items answered correctly. Researchers must be concerned with the range of difficulty of the items and the power of the items to discriminate among individuals. In criterion reference tests, items are selected solely on the basis of how well they are measure a specific set of instructional objectives. Test performance range. Researchers want a test designed so that the subject can perform fully to their ability level without being restricted by the test. A test with a floor effect would not detect true difference in examinees' achievement either. Standardized tests typically cover a wide range of student performance, so it is not likely that many students would get all or almost all questions correct or almost all questions wrong. A researcher should, however, consult the test manual for information about ceiling and floor effect so that he or she can select an instrument that permits a wide range of performance. Test developers gather extensive data on subject performance during the test standardization process. Researchers who construct their own tests can try them out with various groups and examine the result for evidence of ceiling and floor effect. If it appears that performance range is restricted, then the researchers need to revise the test. Performance assessment. Another way to classify achievement tests is whether they are verbal or performance tests. The most common achievement tests are paper and pencil tests measuring cognitive objectives. This familiar format, usually administered to group, requires individuals to compose, answer, or choose response on a printed sheet. An everyday example of a performance test is the behind-the-wheel examination taken when applying for a driver's license. In this case, the researcher's test would require the student to perform a real task or use their knowledge and skill to solve a science problem. Performance assessment is important in areas such as art, music, home economics, public speaking, industrial training, and the science, which typically involve individual ability to do something or produce something. Portfolios that contain a collection of student works such as poetry, essay, sketches, musical compositions, auditates of speech, and even mathematics worksheets are popular in performance assessment. They provide an opportunity for teachers and researchers to gain a more holistic view of change in student performance over time. A set of test specification listing the critical dimension to be assessed will lead to a more comprehensive coverage of the domain. All individuals must be asked to perform the same task. Develop an instrument that lists the relevant criteria to use in evaluating the performance and or the product. Make sure that the same criteria are used for each individual performance or product. Performance tests are useful for measuring abilities and skills that cannot be measured by paper and pencil tests.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here I want to explain about aptitude test. Aptitude test differ from achievement tests. In the aptitude test attempt to measure general ability or potential for learning a body of knowledge and skill, whereas achievement tests attempt to measure the actual extent of acquired knowledge and skill in specific area. Some critics question the distinction made between aptitude and achievement tests. They point out an aptitude test measures achievement to some extent, and achievement test has an aptitude element. Many of the tests are referred to as scholastic aptitude tests, attempt pointing out specifically that the main function of the test is to predict school performance. Individual aptitude. The most widely used individually administered instruments for measuring aptitude are the Stanford Binet Intelligence Scale and the three Wechsler tests. Later, the concept of intelligence quotient was introduced. The IQ is found by comparing an individual's performance with norms obtained from his or her each group through the use of standard score. Group tests of aptitude. The first group test of mental ability was developed during World War I for measuring the ability of men in military service. Today, many group tests of mental aptitude are available. And then testing and technology. Many of you may have encountered computer-based testing when you took the knowledge portion of your test to obtain a driver's license. Measure of personality. Educational research often use measure of personality. There are several different types of personality measure, each reflecting a different theoretical point of view. Research must know precisely what they wish to measure and then select the instrument, paying particular attention to the efficiency of its validity. Some of the self-report inventories measure only one trait, such as the California Adjective Checklist, asks individuals to check from a list of adjectives that are applicable to themselves. It is appropriate for individuals in grade 9 through adult and only takes 50 minutes to complete. It yields score on self-confidence, self-control, needs, and other aspects of personality adjustment. Inventories have been used in educational research to obtain trait description of certain definite groups, such as underachievers and dropouts. Projective personality assessment. Projective techniques are measures in which an individual is asked to respond to an ambiguous or unstructured stimulus on the basis of the subject's interpretation of the stimulus and his or her response. The examiner attempts to conceive a comprehensive picture of the individual personality structure. They are not frequently used in educational research because of the necessity of specialist training for administration and scoring and the expensive involved in individual administration. And then scales. Scales are used to measure attitude, values, opinion, and other characteristics that are not easily measured by tests or other measured instruments. A scale is a set of category or numeric values assigned to individuals, object, or behavior for the purpose of measuring variable.
Hello everyone, here I wanted to continue about this explaining of Isnaeni, and my material is attitude scales. An attitude may be defined as a positive or negative effect toward a particular group, institutions, concept of social object. The measurement of attitude presumes the ability to place individuals along a continuum of favorableness or unfavorableness toward the object. If researchers cannot look at an existing attitude scale on their topic of interest, they must developing their own scales for measuring attitudes. And then Likert scales is method of summated ratings. Here I want to explain this method of summated ratings. The Likert scales, named of Francis Likert, who developed it, is one of the most widely used technique to measure attitude. A Likert scale assesses attitude toward a topic by presenting a set of statements about the topic and asking respondents to indicate for each whether they strongly agree or undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree. And the various agree-disagree responses are assigned a numeric value and the total scale scores is found by summing the numeric response given to each item. This total score assesses the individual's attitude toward the topic. And then Likert scales is method of summated ratings. The Likert scale 1932, named for Francis Likert, who developed it, is one of the most widely used of techniques to measure attitudes. A Likert scale, or a summated rating scale, assesses attitude toward a topic by presenting a set of statements about the topic and asking respondents to indicate for each whether they strongly agree, or undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree. It may be helpful to think of all the subtopics relating to the attitude object and then write items on each subtopic. For pilot testing, the statement along with 5 response categories arranged on a agreement, disagreement continuum are presented to a group of subjects. In Likert scales method of summated rating, such as scoring Likert scales. What is it? Scoring Likert scales to score the scale. The response categories must be weighted. For favorable or positively stated items, strongly agree scores 5, agree scores 4, undecided is score 3, disagree is score 2, and strongly disagree is score 1. For unfavorable or negatively stated items, the weighting is received or reversed because disagreement with an unfavorable statement is psychological equivalent to agreement with a favorable statement. This for unfavorable statement, strongly agree will receive a weight score of first, strongly disagree a weight of 5. And number 2 is validity. Validity concerns the extent to which the scale really measures the attitude construct of interest. It is often difficult to locate criteria to be used in obtaining evidence for the validity of attitude scales. Some researchers have used observations of actual behavior as the criterion for the attitude being measured. This procedure is not often used because it is often difficult to determine what behavior would be the best criterion for the attitude, and also because it is expensive. And number 3 is reliability. The reliability of the new scale must also be determined. Reliability is concerned with the extent to which the measure would yield consistent result each time is used. The first step measuring reliability is to make sure that the scale is long enough, that it includes enough items to provide a representative sampling of the whole domain of opinion about the attitudinal object. Research shows, however, that if the items are well constructed, scales having a few as 20 to 22 items will have satisfactory reliability. The number of items needed depends partly on how specific the have satisfactory reliability. The number of items needed depends partly on how specific the attitudinal object is. The more abstract the object, and then the more items are needed. And number 3 is bipolar adjective scales. The bipolar adjective scale is a very flexible approach to measuring attitudes. A researcher can use it to investigate attitudes toward any concept, person, or activity in any setting. It is much easier and less time consuming to construct than a Likert scale. Instead of having to come up with approximately 20 statements, you needed only select 4 to 8 adjective parts. It's require vary the reading time by participant. And then the last is rating scales. Rating scales present a number of statements about a behavior, an activity, or a phenomenon with an accompanying scales of categories. Observes or respondent are asked to indicate their assessment or judgment about the behavior of activity on the rating scale. A numeric value may be attached to the points of categories so that an overall score could be obtained. And in rating scales, having two explaining or having two materials like category scales and comparative rating scales. What is category scales? There is the category scales consist of a number of categories that are arranged in ordered series. 5 to 7 categories are most frequently used. The writer picks the one that best characterizes the behavior of the person being rated. Suppose a student's abilities are being rated and one of the characteristics being real in creativity. The provide greater meaning, brief descriptive phrases are sometimes used to comprise the categories in this type of scale. Clearly defined categories contribute to the accurate the ratings. And then number 2 is comparative rating scales. In comparative rating scales, in contrast, raters are instructed to make their judgment with direct reference to the positions of others with whom the individual might be compared. The positions on the rating scale are defined in terms of a given population with noun characteristics, and a comparative rating scale is shown in figure 8.4. Such a scale might be used in selecting applicants for admissions to graduate school. Raters are asked to judge the applicant's ability to do graduate who are compared with that of all students the rate has known. If the rating to be valid, the judge must be understanding the range and distributions of abilities in the total group of graduate students. Thanks.